You're listening to Daventry Radio, connecting your community.
The United States presidential election of 2016 is scheduled for Tuesday, next week. It'll be the 58th quadrennial US presidential election. The leading candidates for the role of president are Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. But what can a modest little market town in England, 3,604 miles away from Washington DC, possibly say about the presidential election? I managed to find one American resident who has lived in the Daventry area for 30 years, Dr. Jennifer Leighton. I asked her many questions on how she feels about the up-and-coming election, but before I did that, I asked her about her early life and how she came to live and adapt to life in Britain. Okay, Jennifer, tell me, where were you born and brought up?
I was born in New York City, in Greenwich Village, at St. Vincent's Hospital on 7th Avenue and 14th Street. I was raised in New Jersey, and then when I got married I moved to Arizona, and then I moved to California, and then I moved to Idaho, and then in 1986 I moved to England, where I have raised both my children.
And over the years, what have you done work-wise?
Well, I graduated college as a journalist, both TV and radio, as it was back then, with very, very, very large cameras and much bulkier equipment. When I became a single parent, I worked for the financial services industry over here. And then I became a chiropractor, both for people and animals. Very recently, I did some political things in Daventry.
Why did you move to Daventry?
Because my first husband's work brought us here.
Jennifer's first husband was a US Air Force officer. He worked at the Royal Air Force Base in Upper Heyford, which served as a base for the United States Air Force Strategic Air Command from 1950 to 1994. Were you interested in British culture before you moved here?
From the time I was little, we always were interested in English history. My dad's best friend wanted to educate myself and my sister when my dad died when I was 6 years old in England. And we forgot about it. When I was 12, I read The Hobbit, and I had a very visual idea from his words, which were so very excellent. And when I looked at a field, and I lived in the country, I didn't see my idea of a field, the idea that came to me from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. When I landed in England and came from Heathrow in 1986, we drove towards Daventry, and all of a sudden I was seeing my idea of a field all around me. So I've always been interested in England, even if I didn't know it on a conscious level.
What do you think of Daventry?
Daventry is a typical market town. Something that could be better. I think it could be loads better if the political parties in Daventry could unite and give a united front for the townsfolk of Daventry, because people just need to have someone in office who's actually going to support the local people, not worry about national things at a local level.
Now, I believe you were involved in the local political scene. Would you like to go into a bit of detail about that?
Well, yes. I got involved in the local political scene when a friend of mine at the time asked me would I help him with his election things, and then he asked me wouldn't I run on a paper ballot, and so I got involved, and then the following year I stayed involved, and there was a really good man who has an amazing capacity for turning demographics into real life, and he showed me, studying his ideas of demographics, pie charts and, just things that you can get off the internet or from the national statistics centers, how I fit the demographic of the area that I was going to run for. And I saw the people from the different parties, and they're all like people who slam doors in your face, and I had a little girl with me when I'd go around. And it didn't seem right, because really, if you look at a place at the top of near Bowen Square, like an old age center. And people who live there are 90 age plus. And the place was empty and there were no carers. And these people really need someone to stand up for them. I think local people need someone to hear their voice and make changes for the people.
What do you think of the American culture now?
I think media colors our view of cultures of other countries incredibly. What I see on the television of America, I think, oh my God, I wouldn't want to live there. I only want to live here in England. But if I talk to friends from America and my family on a regular basis, they don't feel those same feelings. So I'm not sure that I'm in a position to judge.
Are there any customs or character traits that you have adopted from the British culture?
A lot of words. Gas is petrol. I can't even remember some of the American words. The bonnet of the car is the hood of the car. The trunk of the car is the boot of the car. And it does become part and parcel of who you become. I mean, I've lived half my life in this country. I'm just as much English as I am American.
Is there anything you miss about America?
I miss the sun. You'll never get a change on that. I miss the sun warming my bones. I think it's definitely affected my health for the worse. However, we had a good bit of summer this year.
US citizens living overseas are allowed to vote in the presidential election. They can receive their blank ballots electronically. Most states now have voter registration verification websites, and many offer a means of tracking the status of the voter's registration and ballot. However, Jennifer has decided not to vote.
I never voted in America. I voted every year that I could in this country, and I've always voted in England.
Why have you never voted in America?
I don't know, I was anti-voting because I did some political things as a child when I was about 12, and there was so much bad feeling that got raised in our classroom that it really put me off.
What do you think of all the events that have happened recently leading up to the results of the election?
I think it's scary. It doesn't seem like it's real life. It seems like some kind of reality TV show gone wrong. It is the most scary set of circumstances that I have ever seen, and I'm so glad I'm not there right now.
What troubles you most about it?
Well, on the side of Trump, he is using fear. He is using all the racist propaganda he can muster. He's raising the power of the Ku Klux Klan and Nazism and hate between races, all things that are abhorrent to me and should be to anyone on this planet. You can't live with fear. Fear kills people, and it makes people angry, and it creates wars. And that's what he's doing. He's creating wars. In New York City, where there was so much hate, you had, in the early 80s, a group of young children who had been in gangs who started to get together and realizing that all their friends were being killed, so that they started bringing an idea of hope. All these ideas of hope, Trump is trying to trash.
Have you always had such a negative view of Donald Trump?
No, I thought he was great. In 1980, 81, my work and we went to the brand new, newly finished Trump Tower for some meetings, and it was beautiful, and it was an amazing triumph of a man to create something that was decent looking in a town which has noted architectural beauty in it. So I thought a lot of him. I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was smart. I thought, wow, what kind of man could go bankrupt and then tell leading money magnates from all over the world, invest in my name and I will make you a millionaire 10 times over, and then actually accomplished it. These things are incredible, but they're business. They're not politics. And his personal habits are disgusting.
What's your opinion of Hillary Clinton?
Well, she reminds me of the gal off Legally Blonde. She always wanted to be president. And, women in America, the kids of today who are grown up, don't realize 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was as much a racist view against women as it was against people of any different color, of any nation. The movie Suffragette was recent, and the fight to attain equality with men has been tremendous. So the idea that a woman wants to run for president, that's great. Hillary Clinton obviously always wanted that. She kept her mouth shut and stood behind a husband who was quite disgusting in office. She's a lawyer as well, and she's since done many political positions all over the world. So she's an accomplished diplomat, but she never expresses her real feelings. She's done a lot of atrocious things. So as abhorrent a person to vote for that I consider Trump to be, I consider her just as bad. So I wouldn't know who to vote for. The poor woman has worked herself to death. She's got ill health. Maybe her vice president will wind up being in office. That wouldn't be so bad. Or maybe one of the other candidates who had run in the Democratic convention but stepped down to Hillary Clinton.
And what are your thoughts on Barack Obama's tenure as president?
Well, he gave a lot of hope to a great percentage of the nation being black, and having a black president and showing that there can be some kind of equality. I didn't like his actions just before he came over to England, because a friend of mine who was fighting to help the fishing industry called me to say that there was a person who had come over from New York City who told her that we absolutely had to stay in because we had a special relationship with America. And then President Obama came over here 2 months later and said the exact same thing all over national press. So it's clear that media educates the public on many things, and we are not even aware of it.
How important is this election, and should the British people care about it?
We live in a global nation now. America is to England, is to France, is to Antarctica. We live in a technological world, and everything that everyone does on this planet affects every other person directly.
We will see what happens next week on Tuesday the 8th. In the meantime, if you want to find out more about the up-and-coming presidential election, check out this link from the BBC at bbc.co.uk/news/world-US-Canada.